likes the Wonder Wheel. Let's blow it up right away. All right?
The black man.
He wants one in black. All right, let's get it.
Any color you want. The black man.
He wants the black man. No, Eric. No, not today. Not now. Not never.
Yes.
He's not a toy. He's trouble. You see the mustache? I asked him to shave that. That's right.
Mr. Morehouse, I really don't care.
But he is one of our cleaning people, Eric.
I want him.
He's not for sale.
Why not?
Because he's a person.
Daddy said anything I wanted, anything in the store.
Hello, hello, hello. This is Uncle Tickles, and you are listening to New Dad. I was wondering if anyone out there had a favorite toy when they were growing up. Did you bug your parents for an easy bake oven or a remote control hovercraft? Mayhaps your parents were rich enough that they could afford the newest gaming console, and that was something you fondly remember finding wrapped neatly beneath the tree. For myself, my favorite toy was a Dino Rider, in part because it was a out of the blue gift from my parents, which didn't happen often. We'll get to that in a little bit. But it was a Dino Rider, and I used that as leverage to invite the most popular kid at Westwood Kindergarten over for a play date. I lured him over. I did, with promises of the Dino Riders. And at one point in the play date, I remember going to the bathroom and coming back, and he wasn't in my room where we had been playing and looking around. And, to my horror, I found him in the basement breaking my Dino Rider. And he was laughing when he did it. And it was one of those things that just triggered this rage in me. The rage resulted in me ugly crying and attacking him. He had a bloody nose, and we had to call his mom to pick him up. He was, really upset. His mom was even more upset when she arrived and learned what had happened. That was pretty bad in itself. But then I got to class the next day, and Peter Castle had told everyone I had a house full of dog shit, which, in fairness to him, my parents did let the dog shit in our basement, and that's where he snuck off to break the toy. So yeah, he was surrounded in piles of dog shit while he broke my favorite toy that I ever got, and from that point on, I was the weird kid at Westwood Elementary. I was a little ostracized. So fuck you, Peter Castle. Unless you're listening to the show or you're a listener, in which case, thanks for tuning in. You didn't have to put me on blast like that, dog, but glad you're a listener and hope life's doing good. Keep on listening, rate, review, and subscribe. But in seriousness, growing up Pappas, gifts, especially toys, were something that were reserved for Christmas and your birthday. And, I talked about it at length in the intro of the last episode, the food. We didn't have a lot growing up, but my mom always made a real strong effort to make sure there was a lot of food in the house. And Christmas was very similar in a lot of ways, where we didn't have a lot, but she always tried to make sure that we had a lot to open. And so, I have to give her credit in that regard. But at the risk of sounding ungrateful, what happens, this is just, it's just math, really. When you have, a small amount of money and it's spread amongst 4 children, and then you're making that even harder by saying, hey, I want to get X amount of gifts for each kid, those end up being small, thoughtful, very much appreciated gifts, but you're not getting the big ticket items, right? So Mama Pappas and Papa Pappas would both surprise you at times, and that would sometimes be good and sometimes be bad. But it also made you appreciate gifts that you got, like these Dino Riders, so much more. And for me, I think also it helped really build patience, which is one of my stronger suits, and sometimes almost a detriment for me. I'm almost too patient at times, and that has served me very well in life. And I think one other way it's probably manifested in my life, you can see it over my shoulder here, is, now I'm into collectibles and these sort of things. So perhaps it's a little bit of an arrested development, where these are things I couldn't have as a kid, or I didn't have the ability to get these toys I wanted as a kid. So now as an adult, as I have these little things I want, I'm more apt to pull the trigger and buy them. And that might also be a result of me being a little bit more of a kid at heart as well. So for sure that's at play. But so why are we talking about toys, and why are you talking about being a kid at heart, Tom? Well, it does bring me to our guest today, who, like me, is a very much a kid at heart. To bring it full circle with toys, is a toy maker. Peter Greenley, affectionately known to me and others as Jesus Pete, was kind enough to sit down with us. He's a dad. He is a toy maker, as I said. He's an overall beautiful person. And if that wasn't enough, the guy also organizes a music festival, Lake Geneva Motherfuckers. Later changed to Lake Geneva Music Festival. And spoiler alert, RIP to LGMF, which I was able to attend at least for 1 year, will not be happening in 2020, at least as of our conversation a few weeks ago. So I had a great time interviewing Pete. Fascinating life. We talked about his favorite toy, a little bit more about the toy making business, organizing the music festival, and one of the better stories I've heard this season on New Dad, a moment in his life where he, as a young toy maker who's struggling to find success in the industry, meets a titan, and this titan passes on a special power to him. And what happens next, you will have to tune in to learn and find out. There's all that and a lot more. But first, Propcast, take us away. Welcome back. We are here with Jesus Pete Greenley. He is Loke Dog OG #1. Someone who has been a kind of an urban legend in my life for a long time. I've been hearing stories secondhand about Pete through my brother-in-law, Christopher, and fittingly, when I would go to Lake Geneva, and I was always hoping for these run-ins. What I would get is almost like these ghostly encounters where I would see this long-haired gentleman walking maybe 2 blocks in front of me, and so I'd just catch these glimpses of you. So when I finally got to meet you, it was totally an honor on my part, and you completely surpassed expectations. Very rarely do you run into someone as genuine and such a positive energy. I feel like, especially as we get along later in life, and that's what I encountered, and I was so happy for you to be on the show, Pete. Say hello to Uncle Tickles fans here at New Dad, and tell them a little bit about yourself.
Hello, fans, and thank you for having me on here, Tom. It's a pleasure to meet you finally as well. A little bit about myself is, well, I'm Uncle Tickles' brother-in-law's neighbor.
Yeah.
So that's how we know each other.
Sure.
We live right next door, or used to, actually.
That's right.
Christopher is now down the street a bit.
But you're still the neighbor of my mother-in-law.
Still the neighbor of your mother-in-law, yeah, absolutely.
Coco.
And Coco, yeah. And so that's how we met each other. And let's say I moved, well, how far back do you want to go? Like, I moved into that house, let's see, Bergen 14 years ago.
Wow.
Moved there a long time ago, straight from Chicago. And we were living downtown at the time. We decided, well, basically I quit my job, and which I worked at for 13 years. And I'm like, I can't afford to live downtown Chicago anymore. The school's alone. They're going to kill me. So I'm like, I'm going to find a little town, sell my townhouse for cash, because that was during the housing bubble. And I knew it was a bubble, and I knew I had to get in and out as quick as I could. So I did. I sold that for a lot of money. I overpaid for Christopher's neighbor's house, but that's okay because it was a lot less. I basically bought it for cash.
Right.
So it didn't matter, right? So that was a good start to start my own business while still being a dad of a 2-year-old and having a wife to support.
Wow.
So that was the thing. I felt like at my old job, which was a great job, it's just, I think after 13 years, it's time for a little bird to fly the nest. You know what I'm saying?
Totally, totally. Now, you had mentioned you had moved from Chicago. Is that where you grew up? Were you originally
No.
from there?
So I grew up in Mundelein, Illinois. I'm not sure if you know.
Totally, yeah. I grew up in Woodstock, so not very far.
Oh, right on. Yeah. So I went to Carmel High School, actually. I went to Santa Maria del Popolo grade school. So Catholic grade school, all boys Catholic high school, which is now co-ed. And now I'm atheist. Thank you much, Mom and Dad, for spending all that money.
Well, you know what? That's funny because I went to Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, Marion Central Catholic, and then a Jesuit Catholic college, and I'm also now atheist. So I didn't know we shared that. But
we got that in common. It's not very uncommon, actually.
No, well, I was going to say, if you want your kid to be an atheist, send them to Catholic school.
Yeah, I hear you, dude.
It's a pretty good route. It opens their eyes to a lot of the hypocrisy there. So but you kind of grew up in the area then, and and so you grow up in the area. You end up having this job that you're at for 13 years. Was that in the toy industry?
Yes, when I worked in Chicago, before I did toys, I worked at a pizza place for 13 years. Bill's Pizza, shout out. Bill's Pizza in Mundelein. Best pizza in Mundelein.
Awesome. And what did you go to school for? Like engineering or?
Yeah, so I went to school in Southern Illinois University, Salukis over here, and Carbondale, right on. And I studied product design there. Actually, I started out in computer science, then I switched to advertising. I was like 4 credits, not even away from graduating in advertising. And then I'm like, man, so I'm going to have to sell shit I don't really like. And they're like, yeah, that's kind of your job. And I'm like, can I make this shit instead? And they're like, yeah, we have a thing called product design. So I switched. So it took me 6 years to finish.
So your first job, were you making the toys then for a bigger company? Is that what it was?
So yeah, so after that, I went back to pizzas for a couple of years. I didn't really want to get a real job. And then I was living in Mundelein where I grew up. And then me and Erin, who's my wife now, we moved to Chicago together. And I got a job pretty damn quickly. Right before that job, just to make money, I was, down at Water Tower Place. They drive the horses and carriages.
Oh, yeah.
I drove that for...
Really?
Yeah, I couldn't really make money there until you really invested, so I quit that. And luckily, I got a job at a place that advertised in toy design, so that was my first job, and I worked there for 13 years.
So then you decide it's time to go out on your own, spread your wings and fly. You're doing it with a 2-year-old, and that's something that I think it's kind of mind-blowing to me right now, because the idea of starting a business with Shep, who's 2 years old exactly, it seems like a lot. So what was that little phase of your life like? Was that, looking back on it now, how stressful was it? I'm sure you kind of romanticize it a little bit.
That was a crazy time of my life, man. It was definitely a crazy time of life. So yeah, she's 2. I'm making pretty good coin actually at that job. I've been there for a long time. I can't get fired no matter how hard I try. And it just got to a point where it was time to go. And so, like I was telling you earlier, I'm like, we can make a lot of money on this townhouse. We can move to a small place. If all fails, I could work at McDonald's and still put food on the table. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there's no overhead. I got no credit cards.
Right.
I got no car debt. We did buy this place for cash, so I had no mortgage. And as you know, living here is cheap, man, compared to... And so, seriously, I could just work at McDonald's and live a great lifestyle. So it took a while. I actually moved here and I started working. There was a dude I knew who had a small toy manufacturing company who I used to work with in Chicago. It was called Aha Toys. And it was actually right above Keefe Real Estate where the gym is now. Those So the whole entire third floor,
Mm-hmm.
just my office. And this kid was a cool kid. No need to name names, I guess, but I liked him a lot. He was younger than me, and he just moved here from Latvia, actually, when I was working with him in Chicago. So I met him right when he moved. Got to know him over the years. He's a good kid. And then, so he started that. He wanted me to join him at first, and I'm like, no, life's too comfortable. But then after a while, I kind of regretted it, and I'm like, damn. I'm like, and he went really far. I just want to invent toys, but he went to manufacturing. So then I'm like, dude, you got to hire me. He's like, you're too expensive, though. And I'm like, just figure it out, man. So he had me come up here once, and we rented jet skis right here and cruise around. I saw his office. I'm like, yeah, just figure it out, make it happen. And he did. And the plan was to work there for 2 years. And then who's my business partner now, Nick, we wanted to start our own business in 2 years anyway. We wanted a good 2 years in between working for the guy in Chicago because he likes to sue people. And we figured a 2-year buffer would be good.
Yeah.
So 11 months after quitting and working and living here, we moved right away. I told my wife, I'm like, look, we're moving anyway. We were looking at moving into Mundelein. I'm like, this Lake Geneva thing could be great. I'm like, Erin's grandparents lived here, just a block away from our house. And so we'd come up here on the weekends sometimes when we were younger. I'm like, it's a great place. It's way better than growing up. It's better than Mundelein. I love this little town. Even if my job lasts 3 months, let's just go for it. So we moved. I got fired in 11 months. Nick got fired in 10. So it really accelerated the whole idea of 2 years.
Starting your own business.
Yeah. So Nick went ahead and he got a job. He got fired before me. He got a job. And he got a great job. That guy can work for anybody. He's super smart. He's an electronics genius. And he's like, don't worry, Pete, you'll get a job. I'm like, get a job? I'm like, what are you talking about, man? I can't work for anybody ever again. Those days are done. It's impossible. I'm starting my own business if you don't want to join me. And so I started my own at first. It lasted a year. I got lucky, sold my first item I tried. It was an airplane called Switchblade for Air Hogs, which is a brand of Spin Master in Toronto. And that money did very well. I bought my neighbor's house, not Christopher's obviously, but the one next door, thinking maybe I could build a new big house on both those properties someday. Had a lot of money to put in the bank. I was feeling great. Nick's like, dude, you're going to make a lot of money someday. That's the whole point, bro. And so it took me a long time, but I got him to quit his job, and me and him started a new company called G2 Inventions, which is what we are now.
So you're a dad of an older child where I find myself fast forwarding a lot, trying to imagine some of these moments. So
now wait, you have two kids?
I do. I have two now. I have a 5-month-old and a 2-year-old.
Okay.
So they'll be pretty close in age, and me and my brother are relatively close to the same age difference. So I can project a lot of how we were
Sure.
being super close. That's what I hope for. But what is it like, being a parent to an older kid? I saw you guys interact, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later at the music festival that you put on. And I was blown away because, and I'm sure you guys have your moments, but when you think of a teen daughter and you think of the relationship with her parents, you think of one that's there's a lot of butting heads, not a lot of friction, not always a lot of love there. But at least on that day, that moment that I got a glimpse in, it seemed like you guys had a wonderful, very caring, cool relationship.
Yeah, we do. We do.
So was it always that way? Or was there a period where you weren't like the cool dad? Because I'm cool for Shep now, and I'm thinking like down the road he's gonna know I'm cool, but is he gonna go through a phase where I'm just a dork or a nerd?
I'm not sure. I mean, thank you for calling me a cool dad, but I have no idea what she thinks of me. I could be dork dad. I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm an old guy.
Yeah, something tells me.
52. I guess all their parents are kind of old, but so I don't really know if she thinks I'm cool. But I mean, I know we definitely have a great relationship. There's no doubt about it. And it's always been that way. There was a little period, I'd say, when she was like kindergarten-ish, maybe first grade, somewhere in there, where that was probably the only period where, she was like, had a little bit of fear. And it's probably because that's when I was putting a little bit of fear into her, right? I'm like, hey, can't do that. She's like, well, I can do everything. I'm like, yeah, but you can't do that. And she's like, what the heck? So, it only lasted like a year or two. And it wasn't nothing bad. It was just a little bit of like, whoa, I'm not used to this, because we have one kid. And I think it's common for people who have one kid spoil that kid.
Yeah, for sure.
So she's a spoiled girl, but she's a great girl. She has no attitude. So one, we could just talk about girls in general at this age, right?
Right.
Most of my friends have boys. Everybody kind of have kids around the same age usually. So, we all got to see our kids grow up together, and everyone's like, well, I got a boy, man. Wait till your girl turns 16, basically, right?
Right.
See the shotgun and all those kind of things. And I'm like, man, that's a long way off. I'll cross that bridge when it comes. The bridge is here. And not really to my surprise, me and my wife, Erin, raised a great kid. She's super solid. She's got the best head on her shoulders in the world. She's probably more mature than me and my wife put together. She's no drama. She's super smart. Like, I don't know. We're not taking credit for it all, but she turned out great, man. She turned out absolutely great.
So how do you navigate there are different challenges, right, to having an older kid than a younger kid? Because right now, my challenge is, if I leave the room for 2 seconds, I'm afraid my child will kill himself or do something to possibly hurt himself, right? You can leave your daughter for a couple minutes and you're not worried about.
I don't miss those days.
Right. So that's my specific challenge, right? And it's just, and that's a lot, right? It takes a lot of, emotional and physical energy to have that sort of attention always, but they get older, right? And now they get a little bit more freedom. And I don't know if she has her driver's license yet, but if not, she's probably rapidly approaching getting it.
Yeah, she's got her permit and she's getting her license, whatever, any day now.
Right. So that's a whole nother level of freedom. How, are you having any trouble reconciling that, knowing that she's now going to have that sort of ability to just kind of pick up and go?
Well, since forever, when kids are young, we'll go all the way back to, whatever, preschool, kindergarten. Some kids do sleepovers, some kids don't do sleepovers. She's always done them forever since she was little. And whether it's our house or someone else's house. I remember, when she was probably in kindergarten one summer, her and her best friend Kelsey did a 14-day, it was split between our house and their house, but 14 days in a row sleepover. And I'll share a little bit more about that, actually. So at the end of it, Bergen's like, Dad, I think I'm ready to end this thing, man. It's like, it's just a lot, every day. It's like, we're starting to fight and stuff. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, when me and your mom fight, just remember we've been doing a 30-year sleepover. She's like, ooh, I get it. I'm like, yeah.
Well, that's an interesting way to put some context on it, right? Now, all of a sudden, she probably doesn't look so poorly on you guys for those arguments.
Exactly.
So do you have any advice you would give to a parent like myself? Like, looking back, it's almost as if you could go in your time machine and tell yourself any piece of advice, raising Bergen.
Man. Okay, I'll do a two-parter in this. One advice I would definitely give myself is right when you bring the baby home, that early, don't clean the house, keep that baby dirty, like everyone says, and most of us know it now, but I didn't know it back then. Roll them in the dirt, or they're going to grow up and have a bunch of allergies and food allergies. Right. And it's going to be crazy, which Bergen does. She has a ton of them, and I think we were way too clean when she was little.
Gotcha.
And it ruined her. And I'm pretty sure that is the case. It's not 100%, but that's what most doctors are saying these days. So that's first part when they're
Really?
right when they get home. And then second part is, and this is just something I always did, and I think it's a good idea, and I think kind of most people do it, but I see some people who don't, and I always find it a little strange from my point of view. Is just I always just taught her, I always just treated her like she was an adult, basically.
Right.
Like I can remember when she was like 2, is before we moved here, so she was 2 or less, and she's on the stairs, and I'm like trying to like teach her how to go up and down the stairs so we could, get rid of the little things that block the kids from the stairs, the gates or whatever. And so we're cruising down the stairs. She's on her butt. And I'm like, you gotta be careful, She's like, why, that age? Why? And I'm like, well, I'm like, because you'll fall. And she's like, why? I'm like, gravity. And she's like, what's gravity? And I'm like, no one really knows, man. And she's like, dude, she already stumps me. I'm like,
Right.
I can't answer that question.
Yeah. It's this
No,
force, and it's mysterious.
Yeah.
No,
Higgs boson wasn't found yet. I didn't know.
I'm like, I'm not fucking Isaac Newton. All right.
Right.
And I mean, that kind of really gives me more confidence as a dad, because that's something I find myself doing a lot, and I wonder, should I be treating him more like a kid in terms of Shep? Because it's a lot of times like, bro, what are you doing? Like, no, like you can't do that. And we have a pretty cool relationship, and I think the kid responds to it better than if I were to constantly, in a baby voice or baby talk. And
absolutely,
I don't know. I 100% co-sign on that. One other question I wanted to ask you about toys is your favorite toys, and I want to ask you about one of your favorite toy that you've created yourself, but also if you have a favorite toy as a toy creator, one that you just look back on, and it could be one from your childhood, it could be a more contemporary toy, but just one that you hold fondly in your heart.
Yeah, man, there's no doubt about it. It is the one and only toy, the best toy ever made in the history of all of man. The Evel Knievel stunt bike. Remember that one where you go round, and your knuckles always hit the ground and bleed, but you wouldn't care. You just, and then it takes off and it jumps what seemed to be hundreds of feet, but you're 2 feet tall at the time, so whatever. That toy was the shit.
So that toy I'm familiar with because of a show, American Pickers. Do you ever watch that show?
Yeah.
I've seen Frank is a big toy guy, and that's one that he's trying to get his hands on. I think it's pretty valuable if you're a collector and you have it, right?
It probably is. If you got a new one, it definitely is. Yeah. Right. But that thing, I couldn't get enough of that thing. All I want to do is, wake up early every morning, just go find the biggest pile of dirt I got and just jump it. Loved it.
That's awesome. Hey, what about your favorite toy that you've created?
Favorite toy I created is probably the monkey.
The monkey.
I guess you
I do. Yeah. No. You. And the audience, this will go and give you an idea of the type of guy Pete is. We've met briefly at his music festival this past summer, but up until that was probably a year and a half before my son, or after my son was born. And when we got the news that we were going to have Shepard, our first son, my brother-in-law Chris said, "Hey, I've got something from my neighbor that he really wants to have. He wants your son to have." And I was like, "But hold on, Jesus Pete?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "What? Jesus Pete knows I'm having a kid?" He's like, "Yeah."
Yeah. So I saw your kid before I saw you.
Yeah. He's like, "Yeah, no." So I was like, "Wow, okay." So we got this monkey from you and your wife, and to this day, I still don't think we're probably using it in like a fraction of the capacity it's meant to be used in. But it was one of the toys my son absolutely went wild over, and really the thing, we probably didn't learn that much about it, because the minute we would turn it on, he would go ape shit and just go over it, and then he would grab it, and then he would do the monkey sound that he was doing. As we're talking, if you're watching this, you're probably seeing video of my son playing it. But it was a favorite of his, and it was just such an act that you guys didn't have to do that. It was so thoughtful, and it was so appreciated. I really hope you guys understand that. that monkey is fucking dope. And if I remember correctly, there's another version of it or a newer version of it coming out, maybe an elephant.
Okay, so yeah, an elephant came out after that. So it's part of a line called Zoomer, which the elephant is not.
Zoomer.
So it started out with a dog, which is a Dalmatian dog.
Mm-hmm.
And that was where everything started. That's where the brand started. It was just called Zoomer. It was one dog. The dog was called Zoomer. And it did insanely well. Like back before I told you, I sold my first item right away and it did well. And then Nick joined me. Well, then we didn't make any money for 6 years.
Wow.
So it was rough. So on the dog, the original Zoomer dog, I remember sitting at Mattel talking to a very famous toy inventor who I idolize. And we're sitting out there having a smoke during a break. And I'm like, we come up with these great little invention gadgetry, but we never make a full toy out of it because we just don't have that kind of time and resources, And this dude's like, Greenley, if you want to make it in this business, you got to do that. Do you see what I just did there? You saw that video? We made that whole prototype before we even showed it. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, that must have taken a year to make. He goes, it took about a year and a half to make. I'm like, we can't afford to do that. He's like, it's the only way, man. So the first time we ever made an attempt to fully go for it was that dog. And everyone was telling us to make it would start out as a truck, actually, that they wanted to be cheap. So I'm just going to talk about motors, cost money, whatever. So I'm like, it only has 2 motors. Like, make it with 1. I'm like, it would be really cool if it had 4, man. They're like, no, dude, that's like total suicide. This is like right after the economy dove, you know what I mean? So it's like, economy's in the shits. Nobody wanted to buy toys. So I'm like, fuck that. This is the last attempt. I'm just going to make a $100 toy where everyone's saying $19.99 is where it's at. So I'm like, I'm just going to do it. There's rich people out there and they can afford it. And we did it. We took a risk and it fucking paid off. So then we did that as a $100 item. And then we did a cheap little one as like a $20 item the next year. But also the next year, then we did so it was a dog. Then we did a dinosaur, which is amazing. And then we did a little dinosaur. And then we did a kitty cat. And then we did a little kitty cat. And then we did the monkey. And we didn't do a little monkey. Then we did the elephant, and then next year, this coming year, we got a couple. Oh, I can't talk about that yet.
Okay.
Sorry.
No worries. It's good to have a little bit of a teaser. Now, there's also another great story that goes along with this toy line, right? This is where you received your special powers. This is correct, right?
So yeah, okay. So this goes right back to where I was. So
this is one of my favorite stories too. So
it didn't make any money for 6 years. And then me and Nick are at Mattel in El Segundo, Los Angeles. And I quit smoking, but I was a cigarette smoker almost my whole life. And Japanese people like smoke cigarettes too. And so I'm always hanging out with these Japanese people at the little smokers table, which is far away from everything else. So I'm getting to know these guys over the years. And so, because we go to that event once a year every year. And so this one year they're like, whatever, I hope I'm not racist, but here's my Japanese accent. They're like, oh, Peter-san, you make the Zuma. And I'm like, yeah, me and Nick did Zuma. He's like, oh yeah, very good, very good, very good. You know, I make a Poochie. And I'm like, fuck, you made Poochie, man? Like that sold like 10 million units in 10 months. They're like, yeah, maybe more. Maybe how much? I'm like, fuck, man, you guys are rich. They're like, oh, yeah, very many. They go, you're going to be very rich, man, too, with Zuma. And I'm like, no, dude, it ain't like that. I'm like, this is just one thing. It's very expensive. And they're like, oh, we think how it's so cheap. I'm like, no, it's $100 retail. They're like, how it's so cheap? We don't understand. I'm like, well, guess how many motors are in it? And they're like, yeah, we think very hard. We think, we all talk, the team talk. We think 12 motors, 12. I'm like, there's 5 dudes. They're like, oh, there's 5. They're like, yes, you're going to be a very rich man. You're going to be very rich. I'm like, no, fuck you guys. I'm like, you guys did it cheap. I made an expensive one. Hopefully it'll sell a few, but maybe we can sell little ones. I don't know. I'm like, you guys have had it forever. You guys have the power. You've been doing things since Poochie. Like, he's like, yeah, well, now Peter, son. And he puts his hand on my shoulder. He goes, now I give you the power. And he was right. That item sold, which I didn't think it would. I mean, it had a bad toy fair. Nobody thought it was going to do anything. And it sold great and changed my life ever since. And for me and my business partner both, like, completely 180'd our whole lives.
Now, when he laid hands on you, did you feel something? Did you feel a transfer of power?
I felt I'm atheist, but I'm praying to God, like, please let me do.
You're aspiring to make it in the field, right? And there you have someone who's not just made it, but established themselves and made a shit ton of money telling you, you're about to make it huge. You're about to be big time. That has to be an amazing feeling.
It's, my God, amazing feeling, but I still did not really think it was true. Yeah.
But it was, and you received the power.
But it was.
So
I received the power. It happened, man.
So the question is, have you put thought into, I mean, I know Bergen's the natural candidate, who you're going to pass this power on to?
I already did. I already passed it on, man.
You already passed it on? Did it go to Bergen?
I had it long enough. Yeah. It was time for me to give it away.
Oh, good for you. Good for you.
Yeah.
It's probably a good thing to get rid of it. Otherwise, you got people knocking on your door wanting the power.
I don't tell very many people that story. It's funny. So there was one person who I love so much, and younger coming up person who I think is just brilliant and could use the break. And so I gave it away to them.
Beautiful, beautiful. Man.
And I'll tell you what, I haven't sold quite as many toys
since you gave it away. Well, how's the person you gave it to doing that? Have they taken off?
They were great.
There you go. Maybe you have to go borrow it for a little bit. Hey, can I get
No.
Oh.
I got more than I need. I've been so blessed in this life. I'm beyond my wildest dreams, so I'm good.
Awesome. So I do want to switch gears here. The last thing we'll talk about is, we talked about you being a remarkable dad. The viewers who are watching this episode can see you're a remarkably good-looking gentleman. You're a successful toy maker.
You've seen my cul-de-sac, sir.
Hey, you are a beautiful.
And my great beard.
I kind of like it. I mean, it's a distinguished look. I think it adds a little bit something to it. I don't know. It's not turning me off. I'll say that. So for a lot of people, that would be enough, right? Those are some heavy titles to carry, and I think if I had one of those, I'd probably be pretty content. But you then went further, and you are the founder and organizer. The music festival formerly known as Lake Geneva Motherfucker.
Very good.
Putting on a music festival is something that I've always dreamed about. I've always considered it more of a pipe dream, but being able to attend it and see it, and just I should say I did go to the last or the more recent incarnation of it. Had a blast. It was a fun time. So talk about how that kind of came about, and was that something you kind of fell backwards into? And
the original concept was not, well, I'll tell you the whole thing. The original concept was, so Mattel and Hasbro and Spin Master, these toy manufacturers, they do all kinds of parties and events for all of us toy inventors from around the world. So all of us toy inventors are really tight because we come together. I mean, one of them even takes us on trips around the world, right? Pays for everything. In exchange that we show them stuff first. So that's the concept there. And so I'm like, these manufacturers never get together. I'm like, we're competitors just like they're competitors, and we get along fabulously. Yeah. We love it. We love the camaraderie. We know we all need each other because without an inventor community, everyone would just do their own stuff in-house and we wouldn't have shit to do, right? Or we'd have to join somebody's company. So it's good for all of us, even though we're competitors. We want each other to succeed. So I'm like, the toy manufacturers should have the same relationship, I feel. Everyone's got to make toys, right? You can't just have one. So competition's good. They should get together. I mean, and it's very incestual business because everybody quits and goes to that guy, to that guy, to that guy anyway. So the idea was and since we're in Wisconsin, because we had a lot of East Coast, West Coast stuff going on, have everyone just come here and I'll throw a giant fucking party. And it's just a party, right? There's no one of anyone doing any business. It's just a party for a couple of days. So that was the original idea. And then I had to figure out where to have it. And so the first one was a year before. I wish you went to that one.
Well, that's the one that sold. I mean, because Christopher told me about that one, and I was like,
that was great. I mean, the thing that really made it great was it was free.
Right.
So I'll get into what I've learned so far. So it was free. It was fantastic. It was on a farm. There was no driving there allowed. I didn't want anyone driving out to the farm, driving home drunk. People were encouraged to camp. And the only way you could drive there is if you camped. Otherwise, I had shuttles and buses running from downtown Lake Geneva to the farm and back. So you get on one anytime you want. One was a school bus. One was like a party bus. And then you get off there, and they were just going around all day and night. And it was a blast, man. It was really fun. But what ended up happening is, like, as I started inviting people, I noticed all the toy inventors are like, fuck yeah, we're coming. But the manufacturers, and that was the point, were like, I don't know, it makes me nervous. I'm like, what the hell, you pussies? So I'm like, well, now I got all these people from around the world, really. People came from London and everything. A lot of people from Canada, and, I had people from everywhere. We had quite a few Brits, and both coasts. So I had all these people coming into town. I'm like, well, fuck it. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to continue and have this party. And then I'm like, my birthday's in there. So it was kind of a birthday party, but it was a month away from my birthday. So people were calling my birthday party. I'm like, it's not my birthday party. I'm like, I'm thinking if it goes well, I'm just going to do it once a year. And the idea was this. So Lake Geneva, motherfucker, was year one because it was a free party. And if it went well, LGMF was the logo, which if it went well, I was going to change it to Lake Geneva Music Festival. Right?
There you go. There's some foresight.
So then to do a real music festival is not easy. So it's a nightmare. It's you got to spread yourself too thin. You got to have a lot of money. And if you fail, it's a big failure. I mean, everybody's seen Fire, right? I wanted to do it that same place, same thing. But we didn't get permits for the first one because it was just a party, really. Nobody charged any money. So now that we're going to charge some money, we need to get permits. We couldn't get permits for that farm. It was impossible. So then we're like, well, we don't even have that venue. The venue was so nice. We're like, where do we go? And so it got to the point where I'm like, I'm not even going to do it again. It's too much of a pain in the ass. Time is running out. You really need a lot of time to plan. And then we were presented with where we had it, where you went, at Buttleman's place, which is great. He had all the permits. He had the land. Everything was good to go. So what you should plan in about 9 months, we planned in like 2 or 3 months. Wow. And it went okay, but a lot of people don't want to pay. I was asking a lot of money. Like, I mean, I love fish, and I went and saw fish for like $40. And I'm asking people to pay $100 to come see bands that play a little bit of fish music. So it's a bit ridiculous. It's $40 for a regular ticket, but I mean, still, even with those prices, I don't want to say how much money I spent for the first party, but I still spent half that amount of money charging people for the second party. So, like, to make money, I think the only way to make money at those things is you got to make all your money on concessions. Right. Is pretty much it. And then all the talent, you got to get some good talent that'll draw a crowd. And I don't know. I'm never going to do it again. I think next year I'm going to try to stick it down to 50 people. Free party, 50 people. I have an idea where I want to do it. I want to do it on the lake, actually. Oh, wow. We'll see if that happens because 50 is not too many. Maybe 100, 50 to 100 in there somewhere. And just limited at that. And I think just really good friends, 50 to 100 people. Again, make it a week thing and have one giant official party in there. That's what it's going to be. I'll still call it Lake Geneva, motherfucker. Everyone knows that name.
Yeah, no, don't give up that name.
But I don't advise doing a music festival. there's so many of them out there, and they're so good.
Just throw a party. Just throw a free party.
Throw a fucking party. Throw a free party. A lot of music. Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of know a little bit of a story with the first Lake Geneva motherfucker. The band that, or like the headlining band, that was one of your favorite bands. I think Electric Six, right?
Electric Six. Electric Six. Electric Six, dude. I love them so much. So, like, I've been listening to them forever. So since I got fired from that job here, and I started my own business, and I would work. I mean, look, you're working at night.
Right.
I know why. The only time I get any work done is after my wife and kid went to sleep. And I would stay up all night on my computer just getting business done, right? And back then I was listening to Rhapsody. There was no Spotify or anything yet. So I was listening to Rhapsody, and it's just like Spotify is now, right? So I just got onto it. I'm like, I love that song, put it in a playlist. Ooh, another one. I'm like, oh, it's that same band, Electric Six. Who the fuck is that? I don't know. And before I knew it, I'm like listening to their whole albums all the time. And I'm fucking loving them. I'm like, who are these guys? I'm like, wonder if they have any videos. Look, they have the funniest fucking videos in the world. I don't know if you've ever seen any of them.
I haven't seen any of them, no.
Oh my God. When we're done, watch yourself a good handful of Electric Six videos. They're the best. So I'm like, these guys are just hilarious. And they're no young kids. Like, they had their 2 radio hits fucking 20 years ago or something. So like I wanted to go see him, and I've attempted to go see him in Chicago a couple times, but I had a conflict of time. Even though I bought tickets, I couldn't make it. So I'm in Texas at what's their music festival?
Austin City Limits?
Austin City Limits, yeah. So I'm at Austin City Limits. We're laying around, and I'm like, who's playing today? And my buddy's reading me off the list. And like at noon, and it's like 11 right now, he's like, Electric Six. I'm like, Electric Six in an hour. I'm like, let's go. He's like, come on, man. I'm like, we're going now. So we book down there. We make it on time. Electric Six. I'm like right in front. I'm so excited, like a little girl. And so the singer comes out, and there's a burrito place. Like, they're looking at a burrito place, right? It's they're on stage looking over at a burrito place. They're like, how you guys doing? And he's like, I had a burrito at the burrito place you guys see right there yesterday. And I don't know what the hell they think they're doing over there. He goes, and little did they know that I'd be standing here with a microphone today. Telling everybody how I couldn't stop shitting all night. That's that goddamn burrito. I look at all the people, everybody's like, what the fuck? I'm like, these guys are so funny. And the guitarist has a fake neck brace on, like he broke the fucking neck. And they come out, and like literally, I just love their music, and they're just such funny characters. So since then, I've seen them quite a few times, probably a half a dozen times. I've seen them in Toronto, Texas. I got to sing with them at the Knitting Factory, which is a famous place in Brooklyn, just by a good friend of mine who buys my toys. He bought me a crowdfunding thing that they did to get up and sing a song with him, right? So that was crazy. He kept sending me this email, like, when are you going to go sing? I'm like, why do you keep sending me that thing? He's like, dude, I paid for that, and it's you. You won. I'm like, are you fucking serious? He's like, yeah. I'm like, he's like, you could do it any stop you want. I'm like, holy fuck. I'm like, Brooklyn for sure. So we did it in Brooklyn, and holy shit, was it fun, man. Dude. I can send you a YouTube of it. It's private, so I'll send it to you. Yeah. Remind me. It's fucking hilarious. So you'll love it.
So what was, you got to meet the band then?
So yeah, so I got to meet the band. So we were there early, and then I recognized the drummer, just us, and then the drummer walks in, and he said, it's like a little bar in front of where they actually have the venue. And behind the bar, you see a window that kind of entices people to go in the other part. And I'm like, dude, the guitarist. I'm like, you're the guitarist. He's like, yeah. And so we talked for a little bit. And then he's like, yeah, you're supposed to meet our manager or whatever. I'm like, oh, right. I don't know. Whatever. I'm over here. Then later on, the singer comes out, and he talks to me. I'm like, oh, man, this is so great. And so that's the first time I got to meet him. And he's like, you're going to do great. I'm like, I'm not sure if I know all the words. I'm kind of all fucked up already. And And he's like, it'll be fine, no worries. I'm like, okay. He's like, I'll announce you at fourth song or whatever. And so it's oh, and then here's the funny part too. So I'm like, everyone's like, hey, they're like, whoa, was that the singer? I'm like, yeah. Like, did you get his autograph? I'm like, shit, I forgot. I go running back to look for him. I see him walking down the hallway where people come in. So I run out there, and then he runs out, and he's standing in line to buy a ticket with his girlfriend. And like, no one is really even noticing him. Anyway, he always wears a suit, but he's in normal clothes. And I'm like, whoa. And his stage name is Dick Valentine. I'm like, Dick. I'm like, can I get a photo? He's like, yeah. So he buys his ticket. We're going through this hallway again. And I'm like, and my big thing is always this with everything. So I'm like, all right, dude. And I'm like trying to take a selfie. I'm like, now you got to do this. And I got my arm around him like this. And he looks up at me, he goes, I don't got to do shit, man. And then he gives a peace sign. I'm like, you're right, you don't. I'm sorry. You're the fucking rock star. So then I sang with them, and then I met him again in the burbs here of Chicago. I didn't meet. Well, I did. I met him briefly. And so then when he gets off the bus at our party, he's like, "Whoa!" He's like, "Whoa! I didn't know this was your party, dude." And I'm like, well, I was afraid if I told you wouldn't have came. He's like, no, I would have came for sure. And he loved it, man. He's like, this is a really good vibe here. And he hung out with me for like an hour or two. It was great. Told me all kinds of stories. It was amazing. Truly amazing.
That is crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of how many people can say that they've had their favorite band or one of their favorite bands play their birthday party.
I know, right? So my buddy who bought me that ticket to sing with them, he came, and he's from Toronto. He came to the party too. And he's just like, dude, can you believe this is fucking happening right now? I'm like, no, I cannot believe my favorite band is playing at my private party. It's unheard of.
And I appreciate you spending some time tonight speaking to me. It's been a lot of fun. I hope everyone listening has enjoyed it as much as I have. We do have a few more episodes that we're going to probably roll out before our last episode of season 1. So keep an eye out for those. Again, we thank Pete for joining us today. Pleasure was all mine. And before we go,
pleasure is mine. Pleasure was all mine.
Oh, Pete, you're the best. And I can't wait to, now that we've done this, next time I'm in Lake Geneva and I'm visiting my mother-in-law, Coco, I'll just have to walk over and say what's up, see if you guys are around.
Absolutely. Please do.
Awesome. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Take care, and podcast, take us away.